I'm Lindsay, and I work in the information team at the MS Trust. I'm really pleased to be joined today by TV presenter Daf Wyn to discuss his MS and life since his diagnosis last year. Hi, Daf. It's really great to see you.
Thank you, Lizzie. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
For some of our viewers, you're probably a familiar face already as a regular on Welsh TV shows, Heno and Prynawn Dar. Daf, I hope I've done that justice.
A very good pronunciation, Lindsay. Yes, very good pronunciations.
And of course, others will know you from your recent documentary, Drych, gyda MS.
You've been doing your homework. That's really good. Yeah, Drych gyda MS. I recently did a documentary on S4C. S4C is the Welsh language channel here in Wales. About the year since I was diagnosed and the treatment and the sort of chatting to people about MS, my consultant, my nurse, friends, family. It was just a sort of a diary of the year, as they say.
I found that video diary aspect of it really powerful. It felt very personal, and it really felt like we were experiencing what you were feeling in the moment. How did you find that experience?
I mean, I think I found the whole process of making the program quite cathartic. I sort of told people that I saw it as a sort of selfish therapy. Selfish in the sense that I worked for a television company. I knew people in S4C itself that might want to commission a program. And I knew that when and if it was commissioned, I then would be able to speak, as I said, to my consultant, to my nurses, to people with MS, people with similar symptoms, people who've had different treatments. And I think by doing that early and quickly, I came to grasp and to terms with my MS diagnosis far more quickly, because when I actually interviewed my consultant, who was a fantastic man, Professor Neil Robertson, he said that usually it can take up to a year for people to come to terms with a diagnosis of MS. I genuinely feel as if I came to terms with it within a few months. I might be lying to myself. I might, wake up in a few months and say, "Oh my gosh, I've got MS." But making the program and sort of putting it all out there, putting my emotions there straight off rather than keeping them inside, I felt it was quite a selfish therapy. But for me, it worked, and I'm glad I did. And I hope at least people that have seen the documentary will feel as well. Speak up, talk about it. It's okay. It's not amazing to have a diagnosis of a chronic illness, but there's so much support out there. There's so many treatments. There's so many people in a similar situation to you. You don't have to go through it alone, at least.
So maybe we could just take it back to the beginning. And when did you first realize that something was up?
I'll take it back even further than when I thought my initial symptoms started. A few years back, I'd started training to do a marathon, and I kept tripping myself up. I was training with a friend who was training with me, and I almost fell in one point and fell on my knees, fell on my face. And I said, why am I tripping myself up? I can't understand what's happening here. But shook it off and eventually kind of stopped, and didn't do the marathon because I was worried I would trip and fall. Not that I'd signed up or anything. I mean, it was just a pipe dream I had to start training for one. And then also I'd say in the past couple of years, I found it a bit more difficult to hold my bladder. Not maybe being able to, needing the toilet sooner than I used to be able to do. But then those were something I'd, kind of put to one side, didn't think much about them. But then March of last year, I started having these bouts of lightheadedness, and sort of the room sort of waking up in the middle of the night and the room was spinning. Not to the extent of vertigo, but just a bit of something's not right here. So I had it for about a week and a half. And then eventually I went to see my GP, because it came to when I was crossing the road, I had to sort of shut my eyes, look, and then do that without the place sort of spinning a little bit. And I thought, okay, if I can't cross the road properly, something's up here. And the GP had a look in my ear, etc. And I had an ear infection. So we thought, okay, I had some spray, we'll clear the infection up and then it'll be okay. But then the infection cleared in my ear and I still had this quite muted lightheadedness. And then about a week later, I started feeling this pressure around my brain, almost as though it was in a vice. I've been extremely fortunate in the fact that I haven't had any pain during the whole time I've had my since diagnosis and treatment. But, it sounds painful, but it wasn't. It's just this pressure around my brain that would, it would start. And then for about 3 seconds, it occurred. And then after that 3 seconds, my speech started to become a bit more slurred. And then 2 seconds later, it would all stop and I was normal. I was talking to you like I'm talking to you now. And then over a couple of weeks, they became more frequent and the speech element became a bit more slurred, almost as if I was drunk, just a little bit like that. And then it went back to normal. So it was strange, but it was one of those things which really wasn't obvious to people, but I could feel it and I knew something wasn't quite right. So people were saying, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. But you know your own body, and there's something not quite right here. And as you mentioned previously, I work on S4C on their magazine programs, live television. So filming out on location was okay. So if it happened, I could kind of just shake it off. But when it came to live TV, where every second counts with someone shouting in your ear and you're trying to get your words out quickly, it came to a point where in one program, I slurred quite a bit during an end link of something. And I thought, okay. Although it wasn't very obvious to everyone else, it was obvious to me. And I thought, wow, okay. So I rang my GP. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And she said, I don't think you're having a stroke, but I wouldn't be happy to wait until tomorrow morning to see you. So then I had a referral to A&D in the Heath in Cardiff. And then a week later, I was still in the Heath having tests. I had a CT scan. I had that all important MRI. And then they were obviously wanted me to stay there because they had seen something. But in my mind, I thought, well, if they're keeping me in and there's no rush, it can't be that bad. But I was waiting for this MRI. Then I had the MRI, and then my consultant came and spoke to me. And he said that I had multiple areas of inflammation on my brain, which obviously were lesions, and that they were working at the early diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. I think, like the vast majority of the population, your mind goes to this quite dark place of what MS is. You imagine yourself, and it is, of course, the reality for so many people. You are wheelchair bound, you're unable to maybe feed yourself, unable to do things for yourself. And that I thought, in my mind, that would be a rapid decline in myself, and then I wouldn't see my 35th birthday. You just go to these places immediately, don't you? Because we don't know much about MS. Obviously, having now come to learn about the treatments by now and the support out there, life with MS is very different if you get a diagnosis now. So obviously I was upset. And he said to me that there were multiple treatments available, but I would first have to have a second MRI to sort of, pinpoint that it definitely is MS, and then that lovely needle down the spine, the lumbar puncture. And the rest is history, as they say.
Thank you for sharing also all the hidden symptoms that you're experiencing.
I mean, I forgot to mention, actually, hidden symptoms wise, whilst I was in hospital, I started to have a numbness under my under the heart, so under the chest on the left-hand side. And apparently my partner, Catherine, said that when after my consultant had come to tell me they were working at an early diagnosis of MS, I texted her. She came. I wasn't in a position where I could talk. I just said, please come to the hospital. She came, and according to her, I was limping. I couldn't, walk properly towards her. So maybe, I don't know if that was maybe just the stress of the situation. I don't know if that's a symptom, but yeah. So there are hidden ones. And looking back, maybe that sort of tripping myself up whilst running and that unable to hold my bladder were also symptoms of MS. Yeah.
You were given a number of treatment options, I think. How did you find, or how did you decide which was the right one for you? How did you find that process?
I think it was 2 weeks or so after my second MRI. My consultant rang me to come in to give me, I suppose, the formal diagnosis, but we'd kind of set ourselves up for it was going to be MS. So although I've made it quite a clear thought of mine that I'm not Googling anything, the only websites I have used through my whole diagnosis, etc., is the MS Trust and MS Society or NHS. Those are the three. I think Google is it's a fantastic resource, but I think when you start Googling illnesses, etc., it's a dark place. So I've only used those three places. So we had a look the night before my chat with the consultant, and we looked at what would be the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. Not that there is a best case scenario, but the worst case. And the one which I eventually ended up using came up, and we looked at it and we thought, okay. I had sort of had an inkling from my consultant when I was in hospital. He said, the early diagnosis of MS. I asked, is there treatments, etc. And he said there was various kinds, some more robust than others. And I said, on a scale, where am I in terms of the robustness? And he just said, nearer the top end. And I thought, okay. So at this point, before seeing my consultant, I prepare myself, okay, I'm going to maybe go for the most robust treatment. Anyway, when I saw my consultant, he said, yes, you've got MS, but there are treatments available. He said there are 5 which I would recommend for you. I don't remember their names. They are long and I don't remember. But he said that him and his team had met that morning, and that they in my situation had unanimously agreed that they would go for Lemtrada or alemtuzumab. And who am I to go against medical, what they wanted. So I decided, I'll go for alemtuzumab, Lemtrada there and then immediately. Go for it. Let's start this thing. And he said, no, go home and have a think about it. And I said, no, I'll go for it. But he insisted I had 24 hours to think about the treatment. And then the following day I phoned and I said, yes, I would want to go for the most robust. Let's get it done. Let's get it treated. Let's sort this out and let's carry on with life. And that's how I came to the decision to go for Lemtrada.
If there's any takeaways from this, it's to not ignore symptoms and to seek medical help early.
It's difficult because MS is considered a snowflake disease with such a plethora of symptoms, lightheadedness, well, that could just be lightheadedness. But in my case, lightheadedness was a symptom of MS. But I like to think we all know our own bodies and we all know if something's not quite right. And if you can, just check it out. I mean, I was fortunate. I had symptoms, at least the symptoms which led to my diagnosis, at least symptoms, diagnosis and treatment all within 3.5 months, which is very, very rare, I know, but I was extremely fortunate. But that's maybe because I did act early. So yeah, absolutely. The takeaway for me is just give a GP a ring.
Did you feel prepared for the treatment? Because you said it all happened rather fast.
It did happen fast. And I did, as part of the documentary, film with an old school friend who I didn't know had MS until my mother saw her mother in the post office in the village and had said that her daughter had MS and she'd had Lemtrada infusions. And mum said, oh, David is having Lemtrada. So I had the opportunity to interview her before my actual infusion. And it was a real insight. And I kind of prepared myself at that point. Okay, so I might be tired for a few weeks. Okay, it's wiping a part of the immune system. You need to be careful for a few weeks. But I like to think I'm sort of a positive person on the whole. So I went in there raring and ready to go. And my partner, she's a pharmacist. So although she's not a pharmacist of MS treatments, she could maybe tell me what so it's alemtuzumab, what a mab was. She explained to me what that was. And she explained to me exactly what the treatment would do, because Yeah. So I felt prepared, but then I was also lucky that I knew people who'd had the treatment and people who understood medicines more than I do. So I felt ready and raring when I got to the Heath last July of 2021.
Obviously, the treatment that you opted for is an infusion treatment. Where are you at with your treatment?
So the Lemtrada infusion, or the alemtuzumab, if you want to be posh, is a 5-day infusion in hospital. It's more than just that. When you arrive, you have to have bloods and urine to make sure there's no infections. And then you have steroids for half an hour. And then post steroids, you are then given the 4-hour Lemtrada treatment. And then you stay for 2 hours post infusion. So I was arriving at maybe 7:45 in the morning, and I was leaving at 5:30 at night. I was the first in, last out. It's like a day of work, even though I was just sitting there watching Netflix and reading books. But so that then was the same for 5 consecutive days. And then obviously there were post infusion medicines to take as tablets as well. I had to do those beforehand as well. And then exactly a year later, I had the same infusion, same routine for 3 days. And that I had that 2 months ago. So yeah, I had my 2 Lemtrada infusions completed.
How are you feeling?
I feel really, really good. I'm touching wood as I say this, because with MS, you don't know what's around the corner, but I feel better the second time round than I did the first. I was quite tired after the first one, only for a couple of days. I was very lightheaded still after my first infusion, but I reckon that's because maybe I was still having a relapse, my first initial relapse. I think come over that relapse now since about September of 2021. And I felt pretty much like me again. And post second infusion, yeah, I was tired after the first day. My mother and partner Catherine, they said I was as white as a sheet. I was clammy, but I felt okay. And then I've just kind of taken it a day at a time and been kind to myself. That was one piece of advice I was given to someone that had Lemtrada. I said, is there anything you can tell me? And they just said, be kind to yourself. And that's what I've done. I used to be a really, I need to go do this now. Let's do this now sort of person, which I still am, but it's more of a, let's do this now, but, we'll take our time doing it. We won't need to rush because, we're not in any rush to get anywhere quickly. So yeah, I'm lucky and happy to say that I feel as though I'd never had an MS diagnosis, which is difficult to say because I know people do live in pain. People live with their symptoms daily. I'm not saying I live completely symptom-free. I have the occasional bout of lightheadedness, and occasionally I feel if I haven't had a good night's sleep, because I don't know if you can hear, there is a 6-month-old having a tantrum in the background. So he does keep me up at night, and I do he's very good. He's very, very good. But, maybe a lack of sleep occasionally can cause me to feel quite tired, and my words don't come out maybe as clearly or as I would like, but those are minor things which I know how to deal with. And yeah, if that's all I have, I'm okay with that.
I can't hear any tension behind you, but I wanted to say, if you need to just hit pause, we can carry on later.
Okay, his mother is tending to him. He's okay.
Congratulations, by the way. That's fantastic news. And I can imagine you've had a lot on your plate. You've had a busy few months or year, to say the least. Has MS changed the way you thought parenthood would be?
No, MS hasn't changed the way I think parenthood would be, because I'm lucky. They think they've caught my MS early. I've had treatment quickly, so hopefully that's a sort of sign of maybe not quick progression, at least, of my MS. So I'm as I am. Harry is a brilliant child, son. He's fantastic, and if anything, he brings more to our lives, and it makes it even more positive and even more happy, which I think is important when you're given such a diagnosis. So no, it hasn't changed my thoughts on parenthood. I am aware occasionally that I become tired, but Catherine, my partner, fair play to her, she says, you can have 20 more minutes in bed, and then I'm right as rain. So yeah, I'm lucky in that sense.
I think you've also gone back to work.
I was lucky that the company I work for were happy for me to come back whenever I was ready to do so. But I couldn't sit at home just thinking about it and things. So about three weeks after my infusion, I started working from home again. And then I started going out filming after about a month, 5 weeks on location. Obviously, we were mid-pandemic, wasn't ideal. I'd had this treatment which sort of impacted on my immune system. So filming outside during the summer was good. I could do that. And then by the end of September, beginning of October, I felt I was happy and strong and ready to go back into the office. And then I resumed doing live television then in the evenings and in the afternoons. And I'm glad I did, because it gave me that sense of normality once again, and not, waking up thinking, oh, I got MS. It's a case now of remembering occasionally that I have MS if I've done, if I've gone a bit over the top, done things a bit too quickly or not been kind to myself. I mean, oh yeah, I have MS, or someone reminds me I have MS, because you still have that. I have a lot of, how are you? That head turn of how are you? Which is fine. That's fine, because as I said at the beginning of the interview, people don't know about MS and the difference of a diagnosis in 2022 or 2021. It's a different place now. And I tend to reply with, yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. I've had treatments. There's so many treatments out there. The support is fantastic. Just so people are made aware that it is a different diagnosis now. Although I'm very aware and sensitive to the fact that it was a very different diagnosis 10 to 15 years ago.
Did you need to make any adjustments to the way you worked?
The company I work at have been very sensitive to me not overdoing it. And, pre-pandemic, I would, be sent to Mid Wales, then West Wales, then South Wales, and maybe to London, then maybe I'd be up in Edinburgh. It would all be within a space of week and a half, 2 weeks. It was a lot, going on, and I loved it. I love being in the buzz of it. But I think I realize now that's not as possible as it was. Not that it's not possible, but maybe, I'll take out that one West Wales shoot and maybe that one Mid Wales shoot and just go to London maybe, or whatever. So they're very sensitive to that fact. Obviously because of the COVID, I haven't been traveling that much, but apart from all over Wales. But yeah, no, they've been sensitive to that fact, and I'm also very aware of it. So no, it's minor adjustments. I think the only adjustment in life I can think of I've done is that when I go for a run, Catherine would like me to share my location with her, just in case I sort of trip or just in case I do something like that. So that's the only thing I can think of, which is annoying because I have a phone in the pocket and that's heavy and bounces against your leg. But hey, if that's the only complaint I have, that's not a problem in my book.
Obviously, exercise is so important. Have you changed the way you exercise since your diagnosis?
Post infusions, I didn't go back to running immediately. I thought it was important that I let the body heal. But about a month, 6 weeks afterwards, I've started running again, and I bought a bike because I think Wales is around for having quite rainy weather. And yeah, I love going running. I love going on the bike. I'm not sat here with massive pecs or abs. I don't go to the gym often, but I do think exercise is important. And not only does it obviously make you feel better, but it kind of cleanses the mind and lets you just think about other things. And fresh air is a good thing. Even though I live in Cardiff, it's nice to come back to West Wales to my parents' house where there's fresh air, and that's where I am today. And there's definitely a difference in the air here.
There's one really important thing that we haven't discussed yet. You found it really important, and we've felt really lucky to be able to speak in Welsh to your MS nurse. Definitely.
I think regardless of which language is your first, be it, I can't whatever, Italian, French, Gaelic, Welsh, whatever, I think you feel more comfortable discussing things in your mother tongue. I mean, I think it kind of takes you back to when you were a child and you were ill, you were talking to your mum, and your mum would console you and make you feel better. And I think that's what I felt when I was in hospital, and Professor Robertson came to speak to me, and he's fantastic. And obviously I was upset. And then Nurse Jackie came in, and Jackie is a Welsh speaker, and she said, she was explaining things to me, and it almost felt clearer to me. Okay, so so that's what's happening. And she said to me in Welsh, and it's stuck with me since, because I said, am I going to die with MS? And she said, I'll say it in Welsh and then I'll translate. She said, Dafydd, erbyn hyn mae pobl yn marw gydag MS ddim o achos MS, which means, Dafydd, by now we expect people to die with MS, not because of MS. And that sentence has stuck with me since. And being able to deal and live with this diagnosis in my mother tongue has been fantastic, because despite obviously in West Wales and North Wales, Welsh is much more prevalent and more obvious. But even though I live in Cardiff, I'd say 98% of my life is in Welsh. And so going to the Heath and maybe seeing the pharmacist there, they speak Welsh, fantastic. And seeing a nurse there, they speak Welsh, fantastic. It made me, I think, helped me adapt sooner to what was going on here and on the spinal cord, definitely.
Have you got any last minute tips for anyone? I'm putting you on the spot. Oh
gosh, okay. I think if there's anything I'd like someone to take away from this chat, and thank you for listening, because I know I go on a bit. So if you've reached this long, well done, thank you. But if there is anything maybe I'd like people to take away, is that if you believe something's not quite right in the body, go to the GP, go to your doctor. It might not be MS, it might be something else. It might be just that you're having a bad day, but it's worth just checking. And it's the line which I was told very early on after my diagnosis, and it stuck with me. And I think if people can, they should do it as well, which is be kind to yourself and try to be as positive as you can.